consider myself Orem everyman. And why I say that, I grew up in a Navy family. So my youth was spent all over the place. And I was born in Seattle, Washington. My father was a 30-year veteran of the United States Navy, Pearl Harbor survivor, aboard the battleship USS Nevada. I also served in the Navy, as did 4 of my 5 brothers. So 5 of the 6 of us did serve in the United States Navy. I'm going to use my glasses here for a minute. And as I said, I love Orem. And having grown up in a Navy family, I, of course, followed in that tradition myself. Kathy and I moved to Orem in January of 1975, shortly before the birth of our first child. Now, I had been at BYU in January to April of 1974. Kathy and I were married in April of '74 and worked together and saved our money so that we would not have any debt when we came back to finish my senior year, which, by the way, was my 3rd senior year because of transferring from SC to U of U to Oregon State University and then coming to BYU to finish my education. I was a math and physics undergrad until after my mission, when I decided I'd like to teach. And so I changed my emphasis to elementary education, did end up with a Bachelor of Science degree, and went to work teaching elementary school, 4th grade, in Spanish Fork. I was hired by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to teach seminary and institute. So in the summer of 1976, Kathy and I moved with our daughter and soon-to-be son to Huntington, Utah, which is in Emery County. I taught seminary and institute there for 9 years, completed my master's degree while there, and then decided to go on for a PhD. And BYU had one of the top 2 schools in programs in the United States, so rather than going to Florida State, we went to BYU, and there was no other place for us to move back to than Orem. We purchased a house where we have lived for the last 34 years, made several improvements to it. Some would say, others would say maybe not the improvements. In 1975, when we first moved here, Center Street literally ended at 400 East. It was gravel to the edge of the mountain. There was no road that dropped down into Provo. Orchards were abundant. And the growth had begun at that time because I actually was the manager for the apartment complex in which we lived on 200 South, 200 East in Orem, and maintained all of those, that property for Bill and Iva Olson. And I loved it. We loved Orem, and when we decided to come back to pursue the doctorate, we bought a house in Orem, never looked any other place. So Orem is our town. I mean, in 75, if you went down Center Street, which is not the wide thoroughfare that it is currently, there were beaver ponds on the north side of Center Street as it dropped down off the hill, or live beaver pens, and there were mink down there too. It was different. There was hardly any development whatsoever. And when we came back in 1985, of course, that had changed somewhat. So I think I may have mentioned that there was no other place that we wanted to live. So I've been actively involved in Orem, in our neighborhood planning committee, the Board of Adjustments, and now I serve on the Planning Commission. I see all of these developments and projects and rezoning and plats and all these other things that come across our commission meetings. And I have gotten actively involved in TRIP, which is the future-looking transportation, which will improve State Street, which has improved University Parkway, which will improve 800 North in Orem, which I think they call it Canyon Parkway right now. And we're looking forward to the improvement on 1600 North. I've been actively involved with the development of the Orem State Street development core, with the different cores there, with the Geneva Road. My name appears on those documents as having done some approval of those. So I'm very desirous to see Orem grow in a good way. I've owned businesses in Orem. All my children have attended the elementary, junior high, and high school in Orem. They've attended college here at UVU and BYU, by the way, which is not in Orem, but greatly affects Orem. So all of these different types of things move to qualifications for me to see Orem in one of those lights of total development, not just my neighborhood, my way, but in what's best for the city and how do we grow and how do we manage that growth. And the planners and the Orem City employees with whom I've worked, and I've worked with some of them going down manholes, cleaning out irrigation ditches and tunnels. So they work hard, they do what is best for the city, and I believe that all of these different experiences allow me to work with everyone, anyone, regardless of their educational level, regardless of their economic level, regardless of their personal level, that I have that distinct ability to work with everyone. Number one, to preserve and improve residential neighborhoods. Now, let me perhaps give some background there. I was involved in the zoning change that keeps developers from coming into a neighborhood, buying up homes, getting the properties rezoned for high-density multifamily apartments. I was involved in the change that does not allow developers to do that anymore. However, I'm also pro-growth with Orem, and I believe that growth can be managed. So priorities: preserve our residential neighborhoods, but improve them too. There are some of our residential neighborhoods that are in gross disrepair, that are blighted, that need to be looked at carefully and improved whichever way we can do it without violating the rights of any citizen of Orem. I would encourage the development of the State Street core. These areas that we have on 1600 North, 800 North, Center Street, 800 South, the Arts District, and University Parkway, which is kind of going by itself, but nonetheless, the zoning change allowed for some great core development things there. I would encourage that development for mixed use, business, and residential, self-contained communities, not unlike what University Place is becoming, which I think is a great improvement to the city of Orem. And I think that 8th South, Center Street, 8th North, and 1600 North can all benefit from the State Street Corridor Master Plan that's been put in place. Also, I would encourage the development of the Geneva Road Corridor to get high-tech business there, clean businesses, and another of those priorities would be to have a healthy mix of small and large business opportunities. Well, growth is the biggest issue. It's also the biggest opportunity facing Orem. Now, about 6 years ago, my son, after an absence of quite a long period of time, decided he wanted to move back to Orem. He had been in Tennessee and in Washington and several other places on his high-tech business, and he received an opportunity to work for Adobe. No other place entered his mind to move back to other than Orem. He was fortunate enough that his income level was such that he could buy the house across the street from us and move in with our 5 grandchildren. Now, not everyone has that opportunity. So, along with this, growth being the biggest issue and the biggest opportunity, there needs to be some affordable housing that's done, but not cheap affordable housing. And when I say cheap, I mean affordable housing that's just thrown together and people can come in and trash, but something quality affordable housing for people. in the core development districts. That can be done in a mixed-use basis. So these self-contained mixed-use communities, because a lot of people moving to Orem, it's a different generation than me. I love the yard. I love a garden. I love mowing. I love cutting and splitting wood, all of those types of things. But a lot of these younger families and older people who are coming in perhaps as a second residence don't want that. But good quality condominium complexes, high-rise mixed use, would suit those people perfectly. They would add to our tax base, and it would, again, encourage a healthy mix of business, residential, small and large business, and residential. So this would increase the tax base so as not to overburden our family base with ever-increasing property taxes. Orem has to grow. We are a landlocked city, and the only direction for Orem to grow is vertically. And so the State Street Master Plan, the core districts, and perhaps somewhere along Geneva Road and some other areas where it is approved and zoned, would be good to build these mixed-use, self-contained residential business communities. Again, I think as I mentioned earlier, it's a healthy mix. It's managed growth. And those who are in the city right now, in the city manager's office, those who are in the planning commission, zoning, etc., are well aware and are looking forward 30, 40, 50 years as to what would be best for Orem. And so managed growth, healthy mix of business and residential, preservation of our Family City USA name tag, and the preservation and improvement of our residential neighborhoods is key. That's where would be my approach to economic development, as long as it assists in our Family City USA and builds our tax base in an appropriate manner. I'm all for that. Yes, other than God and family, I'm not going to be beholden to any man. Now, I used that carefully there, a Bob Dylan song, if I can, and I digress here, but it's a great Bob Dylan song about Hezekiah Jones. And he said, there lived a man named Hezekiah Jones once. And the big gang came up to Hezekiah Jones riding up on their horses, and they said, Hezekiah, what do you believe? He says, I believe that a man should be beholden to his neighbor. And they said, Hezekiah, you got no religion. So they hung Hezekiah higher than a pigeon. So other than God, family, and I'm going to throw in neighbor too, I will not be beholden to any entity whatsoever as far as choosing what is best for Orem. With that in mind, I will not post any signs during this campaign season. I will not at present ask, nor will I accept campaign donations. If I can't do these things myself, why should I go out and ask someone else to do it for me? So I'm going to run a clean campaign. I know that generally anytime funds are given to you, someone will in the future ask a favor. I don't want that favor to come at the expense of the citizens of Orem at all. I will meet at any time with anyone in any venue on any occasion to discuss the issues facing Orem. It doesn't matter if they are pro or con as to what I believe. Can they defend the position that they have with anything other than rhetoric, hyperbole, and anecdotal stories? What is good for Orem, to me, is good for Orem, and it's what we should do, as long as it upholds our residential standards and keeps us as Family City USA. So I will listen, anyone, it doesn't matter. I'll discuss, I'll defend if necessary, in my informed decisions after speaking with any of the citizens of Orem, any of the groups of citizens. And I will work diligently for the citizens of Orem. I will listen intently. I will cast my votes intelligently.